Hello, the UI path community. Welcome to my speech recognition demo about my custom activity, which I created for a purpose for our competition Power Up. So, my activity is speech recognition activity, which was programmed in Python, and this activity can be run from UI Path Studio. So let me show you the UI path itself. So the demo consists of two steps. The first step is the setup of parameters for speech recognition, and the second step is running the Python script itself. So firstly, what is this speech recognition activity about? So by using this activity, we can do two things. The first thing is that we can record our voice, recognize it, and convert to string, and then we can manipulate it with the output as a string. Or the second one is to use a file as an input, which will contains the voice, let's say, and this voice will be recognized, converted to string, and again you can work with that string as in previous example. So let me show you how to set up the parameters. So there is a custom activity setup parameters which I created in C#. It's a part of this process, let's say. So yeah, here it is. So this activity consists of these parameters. There are a lot of parameters, as these parameters are in Python. So there is an input. In input we have device ID, which is the ID of your voice input, let's say. Then there is file path, which is the path to the file. So let me describe it. So if you want to recognize the speech, your voice, then you need to specify the ID of a microphone, let's say. The default value is 0, which will work for you for a default voice input. So I'm recommending to use that one. If you would like to recognize the voice in a file, then you need to specify the path to that file. As you can see, I specified that path. So let's start with the use case about recognition of your voice. So let's remove the file path. And so we are using a device ID, which is the default microphone. Then the logon part is for speech recognition itself. The point is that there are a lot of engines which can recognize your voice. They are described in a documentation in GitHub. So feel free to see that documentation, which is yeah. And for many of these engines, you need to specify some logon. Let's say you need to for some of them you need to specify the API key. For some of them you need to specify username and password. So in that case, but as we are using the default Google, there doesn't need to be any logon parameters populated. So and if you want to use something else than a Google, then you need to follow the documentation about this engine. Then the options. So the dynamic energy threshold is set as a true, which is the default value. It means that I'm recommending actually use this dynamic energy threshold because if you if you don't use that parameter, then you need to specify the energy threshold value. And this energy threshold value is something what is dependent on a background noise. Let's say you want to eliminate the background noise. So if you are in some like open space and many people are talking, you need to specify a higher value as a threshold, so it will eliminate this noise. And that one, it's documented in my GitHub again, but I'm recommending if you are alone, let's say, then you can use 300 or 400. If you are in some noisy environment, let's use something like 2000, 3000, something like that. You need to try on your own what's the best one actually. Then so engine, we will use Google. There are these engines. So but as I don't have a permission for the others, I will use just this one. But you can all these engines are documented in the GitHub, so feel free to see that. Then the input language in speech recognition for some engines, for example for Google, you can specify the input language. So because many of engines supports more than just English language, so in that case let's use English firstly. In GitHub you can follow all possibility of these languages, all possible languages, and how to specify your language. So for example, if you want a German, then there is a DE, like a German language. But for English, let's use just that. Then the pause threshold. This is something related to the pause between two words, let's say. So if you are talking pretty slowly, with many spaces, let's say, without the voice, then you have some higher number. This is in seconds actually. So for example, 2 seconds is good enough. Many times I'm using just like 1 second because it's good enough. But if you're speaking slowly, then you need to increase that number. Excuse me. And then the phrase time limit. And the phrase time limit is the limit if you want to limit the whole length of your speech. So for example, you want to speak for 5 minutes, and then everything after that limit you want to eliminate, and you need to specify it in seconds. So 5 minutes, 16. So it's like 300, sorry. So 300 seconds would be for 5 minutes, but it's not something what is many times used, in my opinion. So I don't populate it, and as default is none actually. And timeout seconds, it's something what can be used and can be useful. For example, if you are, let's say, debugging and you don't want to wait a lot of time to get an error, then in timeout, for example, if you will specify, it's again in seconds, so if you will specify 10 seconds, and the script won't recognize your voice in 10 seconds, then it will fail. But as it's working for me, so I don't need to use a timeout. And output parameters is something that this custom activity will actually populate all these parameters to the IEnumerable object, and this is used as an input parameter for a Python script. So I'm recommending to store it in some variable, which is this type, and that one will be used in next step. So we set up the parameters, and here is just loading the script, which is my script for that one. It's in here. This is the script. So there is one method with all of these default parameters, but they are populated actually from the setup which you will populate. Then there is so in microphone, if you want to use a microphone, then there is a initializing of a microphone. Then there is a setup of recognizer, setup some parameters of that, and then there is a recognition itself. So firstly the recording. So for microphone, there is that one, and for file audio file, then there is this step, which is kind of the same. Then there is a error message if there is some error. Also and here it's using the engine itself, and yeah, so basically there are all necessary parameters for each engine, and then there is a returning of this function. The return of this function is a string, which is recognized voice actually. So let's start with the speech recognition. So I will try to run that, and I will, yeah, so let me just make sure that it's set up properly. So yeah, English, this is fine, yeah. So let's start. I will try to say something like process the invoice number 111. Process the invoice 111. So as you can see, it recognized our speech, and this step is actually the last step in the, yeah, so I will just click OK, and it's actually just the last step of which is, yeah, actually I'd like to mention another thing also, that we are invoking a Python method, which is the name getSpeech, which is the same as in here, and we are, yeah, so then we are using an instance which is from Load Python script. So it's this instance, and the result is Python output because it's some Python object. But then this object you need to convert to string somehow. So it's this get Python object, which will, and then you are specifying the string. And yeah, so that's basically it. This is the microphone case. Then there is a file path, the audio file. So let me specify the file path. So let's remove the device ID because we don't need it now, and the file path will be to that file. So properties, security, just copy, and so it will be here. So just specify it like that, and now we can recognize it by using that. So yeah, now we have some file, audio file, and it's recognized the text. So as you can see, it's a text. I will just run that.
The birch canoe slid on the smooth planks. Glue the sheet to the dark blue background. It is easy to tell the depth of a well. These days, a chicken leg is a rare dish.
So yeah, it's actually working like that. And one important thing which I would show you also is the impact of pause threshold, because now you saw that the string was quite long, but if we will specify much like lower, like 1 0.3, for example, it will be much shorter because actually, sorry. So the pulse threshold, yeah, pulse threshold should be fine. Okay, so there is some error. It seems that there is a problem with that double value. So let's use 1. Yeah, so it's like that. Okay, so that's basically the demo. I hope you enjoyed that activity, and yeah, that's basically it. Thank you for watching this video. Actually, one last thing what I would like to mention is that the problem of the low value was that it didn't start to recognize the speech, because the speech is starting after a while. There is some noise in the beginning, and then there is a voice. So if we will specify really low number like 0.3, it won't recognize any noise after the any voice after the noise. But if we will increase it a little bit to 0.5, then it will work for this file. But to be honest, if you are using this speech recognition, you can use much higher value than 0.5. You can I'm recommending use something like 1 or 2, even more, because it depends on spaces between the words. So as you can see now, the text is much less, because
the birch canoe slid on the smooth planks. Glue the sheet
as you can recognize, there is a space between the next sentence, so it stopped the recognition. Okay, so that's basically it. Thank you again, and have a nice day.